Good evening, everyone. It's a very sad day, but today we will be giving our tribute on Sir Bobby Charlton, and we'd love to hear from all of you. Good evening, everyone. A sad day, but also a day to celebrate the life of one of Manchester's greatest heroes, one of England's greatest heroes, and my father's hero. So I'm joined, as always, by Amonde and Mr. B. Gentlemen.
Yeah, really sad day when we heard the news about Bobby Charlton. I mean, we've lost so many legends in recent years, like Pele and Maradona, um, Muhammad Ali, and he's in that bracket of great players of each sport. I mean, when you get legends of any sport you're in, Bobby Charlton's up there, and he's English. His accolades speak for himself. And not just that, because we're the Man United agenda, I mean, he means so much to this club. And Mr. B asked a question just before the show about where's he stand? What's his standing like? I mean, he's everything. He represents everything to do with the club. And I've since the last 24 hours or so, I've been looking into him a bit more, and it brings tears to your eye because you realise. I mean, you're going to speak about bath time in detail about community, all the ethos that makes Manchester United. He represents every part of that deeply, and we'll get into that a bit later. But yeah, much respect to Bobby Charlton, and we're not hit. It's great. It's thrown around so easily these days, isn't it? Oh, he's great. He's great. He's great. That was a great performance, but he was a living legend when he was here. He was a top player for England, the best player there's probably ever been, and he was the best probably Man United player that there's ever been as well. So we're here to celebrate his life. Big up, Bobby Charlton.
Mr. B.
Can I be my memories of him aren't maybe as I know Monday you're an historian and I know bath time you're gonna tell us a story. I'm I'm first generation Man United supporter in my household, so that was probably before my time. But you hear about obviously players, obviously you hear about George Best, you hear about Bobby Charlton, and those are the iconic, maybe the iconic figures, the ones who maybe transcend just the Man United football club. So I mean, they were faces who were worldwide known. So yeah, it was a bit of a shock. Obviously most deaths are. Let's be honest. But yeah, let's hope that he's remembered, will be remembered in the right way. To be fair, but I'm looking forward to hearing your little piece. To be fair, bath time.
Thank you. I think just before we get in the comments, for me, the story of Manchester United cannot be told without the story of Sir Bobby Charlton. It doesn't matter if you're a first generation United fan or you've come from a long line of United fans. Like, the club belongs to everyone, and to know the club is to know Sir Bobby Charlton. So we're gonna go through some comments first, and we've got Bart here, and Bart's actually quite well versed about Manchester United, and we appreciate his comments, saying simply the greatest ever Man United player, perhaps England too. His longevity over 800 games, influence on the pitch, 240 plus goals, and mental fortitude were unrivaled for Manchester United. Well said, Bart. And Solo's here. Big up, everyone. Rest in peace to one of the greatest ever players. And we got Vincent, and Vincent has recorded a video for us with his thoughts on Bobby Charlton, which we'll show after we've done these comments. We've got Matthew Bassett in the house. We've got Radjet. We've got Matthew bigging everyone up. We've got War Machine saying legend. Matthew Bassett, the greatest English player of all time, and one of the greatest ever to have played the game. His accolades speak for themselves, and to go and accomplish what he did after all he went through is quite astonishing, really. I completely agree. I mean, like myself and Amonde have obviously played football abroad, but one thing that always struck me about playing abroad was I was always asked about three people. One was Princess Diana, like all the time. I was asked about Princess Diana. One was David Beckham. Actually, there were four. One was Mr. Bean, and the other one was Sir Bobby Charlton. He to especially to the people of Latin America, he represented the English gentleman. Like
Yes, that's so true.
it was, he was. I'm not even. He's a player that belongs to the world for me. Same as sort of like Zico or Gerson or Pele, like all these players from Brazil that we resonate with. Like they felt the same about Sir Bobby Charlton because of his dignity, his ability, and the fact that in this day and age, he's one of the last good men in football.
You're right
But
there, Bath time about that bit going abroad. There's so many
mhm,
stories about it, especially around Europe and Italy. I've heard some pro footballers talking about their time in Italy, and all they were asked, "Oh, you're English? Bobby Charlton, Bobby Charlton."
mhm.
Even Chinese people, Bobby Charlton, Bobby Charlton. That's all they know because of the worldwide fame he has. He's a historic figure, one of the most recognised players as well. Um, Obviously for lifting the World Cup that made him famous, and obviously what happened with Munich that made the club famous, and he was part of that. He's the one who came shining through as the top player throughout that. So worldwide, it's not just a national player. This is a worldwide superstar of the game, and we have to sort of remember that while we're discussing this. It's not just about Man United here.
And so I think we're going to show Vincent's video now. Vincent is obviously a match-going fan. He's like, he's the lifeblood of the channel as well, and he's recorded a lovely tribute for us. So here's Mr. Vincent Bullock.
A player, cracking man. If you ever got to meet him, he was always friendly and polite. I was lucky fortunate to meet him several times and managed to get a match programme of Munich's 60th anniversary signed by him. He was friendly, polite, everything the kids today should be looking up to. Voila, an ambassador for football for all round the world and Manchester United. Absolutely wonderful man, and he will be missed by us all.
That was our own Vincent Bullock there with an emotional and moving tribute. Mr. B, what, as a first-generation United fan, as you said you were, what were the sort of first murmurs of Sir Bobby Charlton that you heard or that you saw?
It was always about it was a Munich. It was the
Mm.
Munich air disaster. That was obviously where it started, and then obviously as you get maybe a little bit older, I mean, Munich was something that you heard about when you were younger, but it's not maybe something you focus on at 7 and 8. But once you reach 14 and 15, obviously, information comes out. You've got books that you are able to read with small words in, without the pictures in. Then you tend to probably appreciate everything a little bit more. So mine was obviously the Munich, and then obviously you realize, oh, we played for England. So these are things that you have to learn as you're growing. So I think that the older I got, the more you begin to appreciate the fact that he
Mhm.
went through all of that, say that he didn't speak about it. So these are things that he kept to himself through all of those years. Like, you can't open up somebody's mind and see their thoughts, but his specific memories, he must have. It's it's deep. It's deep, the thoughts that and the memories that he would carry for himself, and the fact that he didn't really share them. But yeah, always dignified, always
Mm.
dignified.
Well, right. So tonight we have a little bit of a PowerPoint. Don't worry, the show is not going to be like a PowerPoint presentation. It's just a sort of skeleton of his career. So here he is, Sir Bobby Charlton, looking pretty dashing there, I think. And here we have, Amonde, some quotes about the good and the great. So Sir Matt Busby says, there's never been a more popular footballer. He was near as perfection as a man and a player as it is possible to be. I mean, that's an incredible quote.
Just to add to that, bath time, I know Matt Busby said, he was asked a question once about Bobby Charlton's greatest achievement, and you'd think, Champions League, World Cup, that kind of thing. He said no, his greatest achievement was he didn't even witness it. Busby said, because he was in Europe, in Munich, still in the hospital. Bobby Charlton had to go back and start playing football again without his teammates, without his family. You say family, but your teammates are your family, aren't they? And he thinks that was his greatest achievement. That made him a man, because he was still a young boy. And 2 months after that, he got his first England cap at the age of 20 as well, after that disaster. So, like Mr. B was saying, what a man to be able to sort of block all that out and get on with his football and with the values that he had and the support he had as well. Because just keep in mind, 4 of his uncles were pro footballers. His brother, obviously, Jackie, was a footballer as well, played for Leeds United, who won leagues and things after Man United's great era. And his mum's cousin was Jackie Milburn, the great number 9 striker from Newcastle. So he was surrounded by his football family, and they've got sort of the credentials that they have is what, and the values that they had, and the standards that they had is sort of highlighted in Bobby Charlton, the way he presented himself and the way he carried himself. So yeah, Matt Busby, that's a big tribute for him.
Brilliant. And we've got Sigmund Judge here saying, I've DM'd you on X, which is previously known as Twitter. Absolutely.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, but also, if you don't mind, Mr. B, perhaps people watching could also, like, if they want to send a tribute in, could send it into the Twitter account and have it read out. But yes, please go ahead.
So this is from Sigmund Judge. R.I.P. Sir Bobby Charlton. When I was a 12-year-old sick at Great Ormond Street Hospital, he and his wife Norma reached out to my family after seeing the work we were doing for the Variety Club of Great Britain. They did everything for me and my family when we came up to Old Trafford, including not just laying on a cab, but being our personal chauffeur to and from each game. The first time was in 1994. My grandmother cooked them dinner once round ours. Our family stayed in touch until Bobby fell sick. We all prayed his suffering wouldn't last that long. Happy to know he's in peace. R.I.P. a football legend and a wonderful man and a true gentleman. And that is from Sigmund Judge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's absolutely lovely. And I think it speaks to the Platini quote that's here, that Sir Bobby represents everything that is good about the game of football. Fair play, respect, and true loyalty. He's a good example for future generations, both on and off the pitch. And when you see that the levels that he went to there with Sigmund, and also Vincent has said that he forgot to mention in his video that he did get some tickets to games off Sir Bobby Charlton because I was looking after his best friend. So a man that just represents everything that's good about football and the people that play it and love it and support the club. What a credit he was. And Gary Neville has come in with the greatest English football player and Manchester United's greatest ambassador. A champion on and off the pitch and a Busby babe that paved the way for all to come at United.
Yep. Standards.
I'm just going to check some comments now. Typically, Andrew and Bart are arguing about a goal. Never change, lads. All right, I want to show you, Mr. B, some of the honours because I mean this is incredible. So the First Division obviously was the equivalent of the Premier League there. He won it in 1957, 1965, and 1967. He picked up his FA Cup in 1962, the European Cup in 68, the World Cup in 66, a Ballon d'Or in 66, and a knighthood in 94. What an honour roll. What does that represent there?
that's legendary status. He's won everything. You got a knighthood at the end. You got the Ballon d'Or, which is obviously everybody's recognition. That's the
Hmm.
same year they won the World Cup. So they
Hmm.
saying that he was the best player in the World Cup? Is that how we look at that there? European Cup 1960 and FA Cup in 1960. That's a hell of a list, man. That's a hell of a
You know,
list.
it's even better when you factor in that great Man United side. Most of them were taken out in '58, and that side. Remember Real Madrid just dominated the Champions League or the European Cup. I think that side were on the cusp of domination, and Man United would have won so much more. England maybe would have done better in '62. Players like Duncan Edwards around, that kind of thing. So when you look at 1962, 4 years after the whole team had been, killed, they'd won the FA Cup, and they even got to the final a couple of years
Hmm.
after that, fighting through. And this is with a makeshift side, you know. So that just shows you the honours. You appreciate them, but when you really scratch the surface, bath time, you can
A
see
Monday.
just how great this is. And obviously, as Mr. B said there, best player in the world, voted by his peers. So you can't go far wrong from that. What a great player he was.
I know, and someone in chat has brought up his performance in the '66 final, where famously him and Beckenbauer man-marked each other.
Yeah.
They didn't have a great influence on the game, but Beckenbauer said, like years later, that the reason that England won is because Bobby had a slightly better game than he did.
And
Um,
it was the manager, wasn't it, who asked him. Bobby wasn't happy about that, having to mark Beckenbauer at the game. But yeah, like you said, it was crucial to winning the World Cup. It was really quite a tight game. That Germany
yeah,
side, obviously, they went on years later to go really far in the semi-final as well, and then won it in '74. So that was the start of a great era of German football, and they had some wonderful players. And yeah, that was a great game, really tight. So Bobby Charlton done a job on one of the greatest players of all time, one of his peers, Beckenbauer.
also shows why VAR is just a waste of time because it would have ruined one of the greatest moments in English football. But I was speaking to my dad today about Charlton playing for England, and he told me that like Charlton really sacrificed himself because when he first got into the team, like incredibly, like Matthews and Sir Stanley Matthews and Sir Tom Finney
Yeah,
were the right wingers, so
yeah.
he was like he had to play out on the left wing, and rather like sort of like united with the Holy Trinity and all throughout his career is that he was pretty happy to just do what the team needed. And it's something that he learnt from Ramsey as the years went on. But less from my dad, more from the comments. So Vincent is saying that there's an online petition book for people to sign for Sir Bobby Charlton. I think he means condolence book. And we've got UK strains in the house. Bobby was built different. He would be a standout player in this current United team because he scored amazing goals. We don't see goals like he scored today in our team. Rooney was similar to Bobby, and
Yep.
of course Rooney took the record off. And then Andrew's in the house talking about Harry Greggs, who we'll get on to a little bit later. And Big T is saying, in his 17 years with us, his shirt number changed about 28 times, often changing within the same season. And of course, Vincent has a picture of himself with Bobby Robson there.
Bobby
Charlton.
who?
Sorry, Bobby Charlton. I was looking at something. I do apologise. And United fans still sing today about Bobby Charlton. 4 goals to 1, we beat Benfica. So, what do we have next? Yeah, a little bit about the Bubsy Babes. And so, Charlton was obviously perhaps the most famous alongside Duncan Edwards of the Bubsy Babes. And this began in the 1950s when Sir Matt Busby made a concerted effort to develop and promote young talent from the club's youth system. He believed in nurturing and harnessing the potential of homegrown players. Now, they won the league championship in 56 and 57 with an average age of 21 and 22 respectively.
Wow.
And between 1953 and 1957, we didn't pay a significant fee for any player. It was all homegrown. And that legacy continues to this day, where for the last 86 years, there has been a Manchester United academy graduate in the first team squad. And that kind of lineage going back 86 years is what is one of the many things that I think makes Manchester United special. And it's the link between, Rashford and Beckham and Charlton. So they all came through the youth system. They all learnt the same culture. And it starts in the 50s and it continues to this day. And I think it's a wonderful thing. Mr. B.
What are you asking me?
What you think about this, like the Bubsy Babes, like what they mean to you?
As I said, that's what made me more fall in love with Man United. I said it was the red kit first, but as I said, as you get older, to know that that's what they lost and what could have been. I mean, they talk about Duncan Edwards. Obviously, he sadly perished on that on that flight as well. There's so much that could have come out of it. I think that's where a lot of Man United's fan base, not saying came from, but from that tragedy to see how the club sort of rose back up, I think that inspired a lot of people. And I think that's where a lot of our fan base has come from, to be fair. And he was a massive, massive part of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like the sort of coming out like a phoenix from the flames, as it were, to go and win the European Cup is one of the most beautiful stories in sport. And it's something that should inspire everyone. And I remember a couple of years ago, there was a Brazilian club that a similar tragedy happened to.
Oh,
and
yes.
And Man United acted like with everyone with the tragedy that happened. That football came together, and it's something we need more of in this world for me.
And I think in Torino as well, didn't they have a plane accident at that time? It was and lost about half their squad. It was really dangerous time. I mean, traveling back then was tough. I mean, these guys would go up and down the country week in, week out, and like you're saying here, we haven't paid for a single player between 53 and 57, and that's just building. And we saw that, like, since 67 years later, we saw with Celtic, they had a team that was all based from local players around in the area, and that's great to see. We don't see that anymore. We probably won't ever see that again. So this is a wonderful thing that was happening 10 years prior to that, what Busby was building, and it was a fantastic group of players that got together and were ready to take on the world. Unfortunately, it was stopped in 58 with that unfortunate accident. But like you said, Phoenix from the Flames rose up again. That's what makes us great, and that's what sort of touches the heartstrings of all the fans as well. Any kind of success after that was going to be, a wonderful thing. But to go to those sort of levels of winning the league title, FA Cup in 64, 67 league title, and then the following year going all the way, beating Benfica in the final. What can you say about that? That is just the biggest achievement ever, the biggest comeback. I know people talk about comebacks in sport and history, but that one ranks up there as one of the best. And at the hub of that was our man Bobby Charlton. I just want to say quickly, my first experience with Bobby Charlton. I'm just going to go back. I'm born in '76, so I loved football from a young age, and my whole family loved Manchester United because of Bobby Charlton, because of what happened in the 50s and 60s. And so it was just natural I had to become a Man United fan. So my first hero was Brian Robson, for example, and I thought he was fantastic. I remember in '83, the cup final, what he was doing. I was just loved Brian Robson. But then I used to watch a show called Jossie's Giants, and and we don't know, Bobby Charlton is from Newcastle. He's from that region as well. But I had a football coach called Ron Smith at Larkspur Rovers, and I think when we were under nines or something, he used to be our coach. And Ron, his son Anthony, used to play in our team. Ron had the comb over as well, so they used to call him Bobby Charlton. And I was like, who's Bobby Charlton? Who's Bobby Charlton? I kind of do, but so we used to call out Bobby Charlton. I make a joke out of it. And then there was also a Hamlet advert that came out around the time. Remember, with the guy with the comb over, And so this is my memories of Bobby Charlton. But the most important thing for me, because I was a young aspiring footballer, the Bobby Charlton School Academy football was, what I dreamed of. Something. Oh my God. Imagine going to that, being selected for Bobby Charlton's School of Football. That was the ultimate. And you've seen so many players come through that era, my age as well, and Mr. B age. And Beckham came through that as well. Beckham was someone who came through that academy. And it was magnificent, the way he used to go away to these schools and learn. And it wasn't just about football skills. You'd learn about becoming a man, values, all those kind of things. Those principles were key to what Bobby Charlton implemented when he set this up in 1978. So I think that for me, growing up as a young man and being involved in football, loving football, my shoot magazines, my Pinani, not Pinani, Panini.
No, come on, Dave.
I was too young for Pinani. It was Panini back then. But yeah, I was just obsessed. I knew all the players, even Luton Townich, which I collect all the stickers. And so I was just in love with football. And Bobby Charlton, for me, was like the ambassador even back then. And he was just so powerful. So I just wanted to be involved in his soccer school. That was my ultimate dream. And unfortunately, I didn't make it. But you can see that when you look at it, the values that he implemented into all the kids coming through that, maybe they're only sort of teaching today about how to become a fine young man and a gentleman on top of that.
And also, do you know David Beckham's middle name?
Bobby.
Well, Robert, but after Sir Bobby Charlton. Okay, we're just going to do some comments here. We've got Sigmund back in the house. There's sadly not one person that personifies United like Sir Bobby. Really does feel like a part of the club has gone, not just a player. Vincent is saying he's also good friends with Jimmy Murphy's grandson Paul, because Bobby Robson, I've got this in my head now. Bobby Charlton was the only player that went to Jimmy Murphy's funeral because he was seen as part of the family. And UK Strange saying the last Busby babe has left us. It's a sad end. Bobby was a foundation of the club for the last 60 years.
Yeah.
And Andrew Williams, Brian Robson, 1985 Cup final, when I fell in love with United. Bart is saying there's a photo of Rashford signing his first pro contract with Charlton in the background. It shows how much he believed in the youth and motivating them. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the youth, Andrew says, I remember going to the Bobby Charlton Soccer Skills Day at Morpher in Swansea in 1988. And Vincent also got a trial with the Sir Bobby Charlton Soccer School, but never made it to the next round, which is exactly what happened to Andrew as well. So unlucky lads. Right. So now it's the Munich air disaster, and I think it's fitting to remember that it was 23 people that died. 8 were Manchester United players, 3 club staff, but also journalists also died. Like it was a tragedy that robbed Manchester of an exceptional crop of players. Several other players, including Charlton and Edwards, were seriously injured. And this is something that I think's really important, because I think this informs quite a lot of the life of Bobby Charlton. Is Charlton and his teammate Violet swapped places with Taylor and Pegg, who decided that they would be safer at the back of the plane because there was I think there were 2 failed takeoffs. 7 of his teammates perished at the scene, including Taylor and Pegg, with whom he had swapped seats with. Brine, Jones, Whelan, Coleman, Bent, and then obviously Duncan Edwards a fortnight later, all lost. And for the whole of his life, Charlton would have been thinking about that cruel twist of fate, survivor's guilt with swapping seats.
Wow.
It's such a crazy world. And then this is, I think that Harry Gregg is someone who should be like praised more and more, where he began a one-man rescue mission. He found Charlton strapped into his seat. He grabbed both him and Violet by the trouser waistbands and dragged them away from the plane in constant fear it would explode. Greg returned to the plane to help the appallingly injured Busby and Blanchflower, and when he turned around again, he was received to see that Charlton and Violet, both of whom he had presumed to be dead, had got out of their detached seats and were looking into the wreckage. Charlton was the first injured survivor to leave hospital. Harry Gregg and Bill Fawkes were not hospitalised, they escaped uninjured. He arrived back in England on the 14th of February 1958, 8 days after the crash. He was 20 years old.
Wow.
I mean, Mr. B, when you sort of like hear that horrific tale, I mean, how do you comprehend what those young men went through?
You can't.
Things. Yeah.
As I said, half time, I just don't think you can. I mean, and you've got to look at what you see, nowadays, obviously, everything's safety conscious. So there's certain levels that you look at. But, I mean, if you look at the planes that they were flying in those days, if you look at the state of the runway before they took off, it's for him, you're going to have those thoughts in your mind anyway. The fact that he swapped seats, as I said, you talk about survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the mind is a very, very complex thing that you can just shut things like that away. Not say forget, but you move on. And for him to have done what he did after that, incredible.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, you want to go on. Imagine that, swapping seats and two of your buddies, and then next thing what happened. What are you thinking? And then you come back. You're going to play every game, and you're going to tribute to your teammates, aren't you? From then on, you're going to fight for the cause, and that's why I think it made the man. It made him what he is, because he had to continue with that memory of what happened and represent the club, and after that, after his career was over, still going on and being an ambassador for the club and still install all those great values into it as well, because that could never be forgotten. Even when you just read it out there, you're thinking, what really, oh my god, it's shocking, absolutely shocking. So what he must have gone through, and just to say this, you can say he was a tough guy, he just put it in the back of his mind. I don't think so. It came out many times. I remember he was on This Is Your Life just after, I think it was like 1969. Eamon Andrews came out and they gave him here's the book, This Is Your Life, that kind of thing. And he got all emotional and welled up. And you can see he's been professional in front of the cameras, and he just broke down like that. Just couldn't take it. Just came out because this guy's holding it together, representing, on the front foot, and then suddenly he just had to break down and cry. And you're just thinking, what's coming out here? It's all that emotion, all that, he was kind of like a humble player, wasn't he? For all the accolades he had, it's like, you're great, Robbie, you're the best, you're this, that. He didn't like it. He just wanted to be normal lad, like everyone else, and just be very humble with it, despite him being the best player in the world. So, and also in '99, I remember him cried when we finally won the European Cup again, or the Champions League. So this guy was keeping it together all the time, and I rate him for that.
I think it's also sort of important to point out that for this European Cup, the English FA were not keen on United playing, and it was the belief of Busby and the Busby Babes that in the sort of the shadow of World War II, football was what was going to unite Europe. And it was absolutely crucial that Manchester United was involved in that. And it is an absolute betrayal of the values of everyone, what happened with the Super League. And it shouldn't be forgotten, like, that our club is built on the tragedy that happened in Europe. And we should always remember that. But it's time just for a few comments. DN Vlogs, the best Manchester United player ever, Sir Bobby Charlton. Andrew, he's got a lump in his throat reading that. Me too, to be honest. Vincent felt sorry for the pilot, 10 years of fighting to clear his name because he knew there was no ice on the plane, it was water on the runway. And Sir Bobby Robson played 2 weeks after the crash. Just unbelievable. Matthew Bassett. Munich didn't just rob Manchester. It robbed the footballing world of a truly great and fabled team. The legendary Real Madrid team that had the likes of Puskás and Di Stefano had nothing but love and respect for our great team. And Matthew's completely correct, because in the aftermath of the tragedy, Manchester United were... Real Madrid tried to loan Alfredo Di Stefano to Manchester United, but the English FA said no. And it's also worth noting that teams like Liverpool came to our aid.
Yeah.
Like it was a football disaster, and the football world came together. Solo is saying an amazing tribute, but this is everyone's tribute. This is the people in the comments as well, and feel free to send, if you have a long comment that you want to be read out, send it in to the Twitter account, and we'll see if we can get to it. And then Andrea is saying it was Sir Matt Busby's dream to conquer Europe. For them to die chasing a noble dream like that, so tragic. Brush is here. Good to see him last night. Rest in peace, Sir Bobby. Rajat, rest in peace. Andrew is saying he was never booked. I think he was booked twice, actually. I think he was booked in his last game at Chelsea. 106 games, 49 goals for a midfielder. England.
Ridiculous.
Just,
Crazy.
it's unreal. Now, this is just such tragic situation that we find ourselves in after the Munich disaster. But hope is eternal, and the human spirit is unconquerable. And this is what happened next. In 1963, Charlton won Manchester United the FA Cup. In 1965, we got the championship back. In 1966, he won England the World Cup and was given the Ballon d'Or. In 1967, we won the First Division Championship again. And then in 1968, 10 years after the disaster, we win the European Cup. And I don't really know what to say, because when you look at that, it's incredible. It should like arouse the spirit in everyone about what can be done with like pulling together and working. Like you can do so much. And you were talking on Monday about how it must have affected him swapping seats and things like that. We know that Charlton was he wasn't like a jovial man. He was a serious man, and in terms of sort of like law and best, he always had like he always had issues with how seriously they took it and things. And the standards that Sir Alex Ferguson brought into the club, the standards that Roy Keane and Robson demanded, they come from Charlton, and they come from the respect that has to be given for the people that died for Manchester United. And this here, these accolades are the respect back. Like Charlton made sure that in that twist of fate, he was going to glorify everyone. The memories wouldn't go, and the club wouldn't go, and we were on our knees. And 10 years later, we'd won the European Cup, won an FA Cup, and had 2 championships. It's
just a reminder that we were the first English club to win the European Cup as well. You know, so that even makes it even more important. So when after that, the Man United kind of declined with their form. We had great Leeds team, Leicester, Everton, a lot of great teams around that time. Man City as well were buzzing, and Charlton came like I think he retired in '71, just not long after that, and then we had a poor decade after that because we couldn't replace those sort of standards. Like you said, Best continued and Lord left and that kind of thing. But his standard, he was there from the beginning, so he knew exactly what it was about. And going back to sort of Duncan Edwards, he just rates Duncan Edwards so much. There's a story when he was he got signed for Manchester United. And he was on his way to the training ground, and his coach was telling him, and just talking about one player. Yeah, Duncan Edwards does this. He's a great defender. He's a leader. He's strong. He scores goals. You know. And when he played with him, in the short time that he played with him, And his short term, I mean, he died at 21 years old, didn't he, Duncan? He's only a year older than Bobby. Bobby still regards him as one of the best footballers of all time, and that's amazing, you know. But imagine that Duncan Edwards and Bobby Charlton being able to play in the same team. Those accolades, we'd have to get staple stuff onto there to add them, because we would have been dominated completely. And it's the values. I think the most important thing is the values that we got here. Big up to Matt Busby as well, because once that's gone, you can see the decline in the 70s, because we had to sort of rebuild again, and we forgot our values, because Bobby Charlton was out there, he went to manage elsewhere, and we had to rebuild again, and we didn't have the same kind of structure. We got lost in the wilderness. So Bobby Charlton, for those 10 years, from 58 to 68, just outstanding, absolutely outstanding. But I'm saying it's not in a poor league. The English football was on the rise. English football was fantastic. You got to go back. I mean, we had players like Tom Finney, Stanley Matthews in the 50s. Then going to the 60s, you had all the great Scottish players, and the English league was thriving, wasn't it? Jimmy Greaves was fantastic in the 60s as well. And obviously we won the World Cup in 66 on home soil, but the well deserved. The best team in the world. And Bobby Charlton is head and shoulders above all these guys. And they, because of the way he played. And let's just talk about him as a footballer, guys, because we're talking about values and all that kind of thing, which is the most also important. But as a footballer, two-footed. Is he? You go out and tell me, is he left foot or right foot? You wouldn't even know. You know, today you get players like Salah. They're saying he's the best player in the world. We know he's one-footed. He's simply one-footed. Bobby Charlton was two-footed. The balance, the gracefulness, which we glide across the pitch, the swivel, the turn, the drive he had, the control, the composure. This guy was a magnificent. His passing range was top drawer. His shooting was unbelievable with those big old level footballs they had back in the day. You know, once he hit it, it was stayed hit. Like I think it used to be compared him to Rooney earlier. But this guy was an outstanding footballer and dictated the show. He said, I mean, Pele was big in '58 and proved during that same era as well when he won the World Cup in Sweden. But and up until 1970s as well. So Pele was playing throughout the same era as him. But Charlton rates Di Stefano as one of the greatest players he's ever seen as well, you know. And Di Stefano would say the same about him, as you said earlier, Bath time. Real Madrid were really knew that Man United were on the up. And when that disaster happened, like you said, they did offer to loan us some players and help us out there. But yeah, go across the world. Everyone knows Bobby Charlton. And this is why we have to do a show on him, because it's so damn important for the Man United agenda, for Man United fans, and for Man United Football Club. This is the main man. And it's just a reminder. I lost my granddad recently as well. These values the older heads had stay with you. If you have to keep them, you can't disregard them, because we talk about what's going on in football today, the behaviour, the attitude. And I mean, someone mentioned in the comments, young people, their behaviour, their attitude, all that kind of thing. We need to have values, have standards set back in ourselves as well. So it's not just about football. It's about what I will take from this about Bobby Charlton and how I will conduct myself to become a better person, as well as my granddad and all these old heads as well. They were flipping class.
We'll just do some comments while we get to Mr. B. Andrew Williams, just beautiful. That's truly a great heritage. This football club is special. It is special. Vincent is saying that after the air disaster, he even thought about quitting football and refused to play. But it was Jimmy Murphy that went to his house in Newcastle, and his mother said, "Please have a word with him." And then we got Richard Herbert asking if we're keeping well. Yeah. And Andrew talking about things that will arouse him on day. Puskás, Eusebio, Pele, Garincha, Beckenbauer. What an era. And also an underrated player called Slim Jim Baxter. Used to play for Scotland and Rangers.
Great player.
Charlton has a lot of good quotes about him. But Mr.
He was only
B,
short, Jim Baxter.
yeah. He's the guy who did the keepy uppies in '67 against England. But Mr. B,
Jimmy Johnson.
What do you mean?
I think it's Jimmy Johnson, the ginger.
No, it was Jim Baxter.
Okay.
Mr. B, having seeing all of this and sort of seeing the history of United laid out so bluntly, like this, what would you say to the current squad and to the younger fans about the importance of Sir Bobby Charlton to this football club?
Foundation. He's a he's a rock that should inspire the next generation of players. I mean, my son today, he played football and they had a minute silence, they did. And one of the kids said, yeah, somebody passed away. My son said, no, not somebody. Bobby Charlton passed away. And for him to say that at 10, not really knowing who he was, I just thought, yeah, well done, son. You've obviously been listening to me for the last couple of days. So I'm hoping now when he has 12 kids, 12 boys, all of them support Man United, and then their boys all support Man United. We might be in the second division by then, the way things are going with the ownership. But it's part of the history that makes our club great. I'll be honest, I don't understand why everybody doesn't support Manchester United. When you hear stories like this, it's true. When you hear stories, I mean, you've got clubs who have no tragedy, they don't have any glory, they just play football. But we've got stories to tell. When our players pass away, it doesn't just affect Manchester United, it affects everybody in the whole world, and that's why I say the club is big.
I couldn't agree more. But I think it's also important to point out that all other football clubs provide a service to their community, which I'm very big on. And Richard Herbert is here saying, sad to hear about the passing of Bobby Charlton. Looking at his video clips, he was something special. A sad loss for his family and friends, and United. May you rest in peace to another United legend. And I think on Monday that when the funeral happens, we're going to see the good and the great of the game all turn out. Every player of that area will doff their cap to just a wonderful man, and it's just so sad. And here's Brendan saying, people become fans due to their friends and family. That's the number one reason to become a fan. Thanks, Brendan. Amonde, do you have any closing thoughts before I do my little bit at the end?
Yeah, just to say, it's a sad day for football. Another loss of one of the greats, all-time greats, and it's more significant for us here because he's a Man United player and England player as well. Just repeat again, go and check out the highlights. Go and watch 90-minute games if that's possible, in black and white, to see what was going on. Look at the pitches, look at the standard based on the pitches as well, and look at how graceful this player was for us, and in the midfield or on the left-hand side. What do they call it now? The inside forward, at these sort of positions. That was way back then, half-backs, all the time. Just go and look at the lineups and where they were positioned and how they would play the game. And just admire it, because the game's changed a lot. But these players could play in any era. Trust me, the names that are read out there of the 50s and 60s, the Puskas's, Eusebios, Pelés, Garinchas, Beckenbauer, they were the greats of that time, and they will be the greats of all time. They still stand up today. And with the loss of Bobby Charlton, we can revive that and say, yeah, Bobby was one of the best. I know a lot of fans just know about the Premiership era, and when we talk, we say, oh yeah, who's the best player? Cantona was the best, and all kind of. And we forget, because it's a generation before even ourselves, even before Mr. B. Surprise. But besides that, you have to be an historian. Go and check it out, guys. Everyone, go and check out all the games from the 50s and 60s, and become an expert on Bobby Charlton. Not because he's died or anything, but because you love the game and you could talk to your generation of kids and the generation after that and say, Bobby Charlton was the man, and here's why. He used to do A, B, and C, representing the club, and he was an ambassador for many years, and he's known worldwide. And you need, as a Man United fan, you cannot be a real true fan unless you've got the know-how and understanding of what Bobby Charlton was represented.
Yeah, like I couldn't agree more. And if anyone has sent in any comments to Mr. B, we'll read them out now. I just checked my Twitter, and of course, I've been spammed by Luca to watch a match previews of Sevilla. Unbelievable. And we have Emma K here as a much younger supporter. There you go, Monday. Thank you for the words for Sir Bobby, your own experiences and others. And then we have Vincent saying, Sir Bobby Charlton, now you're in heaven, you'll be up there playing with the Busby boys. Remember to bang a goal or two for us to win. And here's Box saying, rest in peace, Sir Bobby Charlton. Have we had any tributes come in on Twitter,
No,
Mr. B?
no, we're clear. I'm
All
ready for you now.
Yeah. So, like, my family has been, like, Manchester United for, like, in recorded history. And the thing that I always think about with Sir Bobby Charlton and the Busby Babes is just, it's an incredible legacy. And I think it goes back to the First World War, where all these boys from, like, you know, Fallowfield and wherever, they all went out and they were changed by the war. They came back and there were empty chairs at empty tables, and it's something that never went away. And then in the Second World War, exactly the same thing happened. We sent our young boys out to fight, and they got in a bit of trouble, and the guys from the First World War came and got them at Dunkirk. They would not let it happen again. Sons, fathers, grandfathers all banded together and sent the little boats out to bring our boys back home. And then we had two generations of broken men that were in real difficulties. And this wonderful thing happened where the Busby Babes came out, a generation completely unfettered from the horrors of the war, and they gave hope to everyone. Broken communities saw their sons playing at Old Trafford and rallied around them, and it was a beautiful time. And that was taken away from us with the tragedy. And Bobby Charlton became, like the generation before him, like a man with too much guilt and anger and tragedy. And something beautiful happened, which is exactly the same at Dunkirk. The generations of fans in Manchester rallied around, football rallied around, and we rebuilt the club, and we made a covenant between the players and the fans that can never be broken. And 10 years later, only 10 years later, in the swinging 60s, we saw them lift the European Cup, and Bobby Charlton was there as that link that goes back to all those tragedies, all the way back to, you know, as far as the Peterloo massacre in Manchester. And if you are a Manchester United fan, it's something that you need to know, because Bobby Charlton is the history of our club, and it's why the club is special. And they say a man dies twice. The first time he dies when his soul departs, but the second time is where no one says his name anymore. So for all of you, for your son, Mr. B, and for everyone watching, please keep Bobby Charlton's name alive. Pass it down to your sons and your nieces and your nephews and your daughters, because that man links the club from tragedy to glory, and it's everything about being a Manchester United fan. And that's how I feel about Manchester United and Bobby Charlton.
Well said. That's beautiful.
All right, I think, unless there's any other business on Monday, I think that will be us done for this evening.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Bobby. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for being that main man for our club. And let's hope we can move on to further success going forward in your memory.
Mr. B?
I enjoyed that in a not morbid way.
Celebration.
Yeah. I'm glad people in the chat have been able to have their opinion, and voice what I'd have to say. Look, let's just hope that inspires that team of no good son of a bitches to sort themselves out sorry, that maybe is the wrong
It's true.
wording, but that's what was in my head. Let them sort themselves out and understand what it means to be a legend of the club, and maybe it will make them fix up to when they retire, when they reach 85, 86 years of age, that there's people who did care about your life. So yeah, I enjoyed today. Well done, Bath Time, man. Well done, my Monday, and well done, you guys in the chat.
Big up, Mr. B. Big up, Bath Time.
All right. Well, it's good night from all of us, and rest in peace, Sir Bobby Charlton.